What's a thing you know you'll always feel guilty about? I first encountered my closest friend Max at his mother's service when we were both just 8 years old. Our entire grade attended, and I can still recall feeling sympathetic towards him. It wasn't so much the funeral itself, but more that several dull, formally dressed guys kept speaking to him about topics that were over my head. So, I approached him and questioned whether he'd like to come over and play Super Smash Bros. At my place. And from that moment onward, we have been the best of friends. I'd like it if this were where the tale ended, but it actually takes a turn for the worse. Because for Max's ninth birthday, my mother was adamant that we have a surprise party for him to lighten the load on his father. The entire class showed up, and when Max finally got there, we all embraced him tightly and sang the entire birthday song a full 3 times consecutively. But then the cake appeared. Max seized a fistful of the cake and mashed it all over my face. And without even pausing to consider it, I snatched up the closest thing I could reach, which happened to be a lump of mud from my shoe, and hurled it at him. Max attempted to avoid it, but it went directly into his mouth. Suddenly and unexpectedly, he began throwing up all over the place. And that's when I realized that I had just tossed dog feces into my best friend's mouth. The celebration wrapped up prematurely, and a couple of days later my mom informed me that Max had ended up in the hospital. When we were at last given the opportunity to see him, we learned that the fecal matter had caused an illness that affected the nerves in his facial area. Consequently, he experienced lasting paralysis on one half of his face. I broke down crying, and Max told me he harbored no resentment toward me, explaining that his mother had consistently advised him to forgive without delay, regardless of the circumstances. Occasionally, the thought crosses my mind whether I'm on his, but then that lopsided grin flashes in my memory, and I find myself hopping I'm not.